everybody, so today we are going to making this style. This video will be about the cutting of the upper part, the front piece first. So we are going to be working on a princess bustier with back waistline and a scallop neckline, and you only need few measurements. So these are what you need: the shoulder, the bust palm, and on the bust measurement. Hi guys, my name is Fatima A. Yusuf, and on this platform I share sewing tutorials. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and let's get to it. So I have a piece here, it's folded. I cut out the length I'll be needing, and for the width you can use your bust measurement divided by 2, then you add about 8 to 10 inches allowance. Cut it out and fold it like this. So I went ahead to mark a border line. That's where you're starting all your measurement from. Then this is the length I had. The length depends on where you want your back's effect to stop, right? In case you're not making your back's effect, you're supposed to stop at your half cut length, whether 15 inches or 16 inches. But me, since I wanted a back's effect for the front piece, I went with this measurement. So I'll go ahead and mark my shoulder divide by 2. Anything you get, you mark it. After marking my shoulder measurement, right, I'm going to mark my neckline width. I used 4 in this case. You can use any width you want, whether 5 or 6. And I feel like using more than 4 will actually make the scallop neckline look finer, because mine didn't really give me what I wanted, but it was okay. So for the neckline, you can use any measurement you want. So at that my shoulder measurement, I'm going to mark 0.5 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'm going to join it to my neck width using my ruler with a slant line like this, right? So after doing that, around that my neckline, the width, I'm going to mark 0.5 downward, and I'm also going to go to that my under my shoulder slope line, and I'm going to mark 0.5. So that will be our stitching allowance. I'll mark that one too. So after marking that, right, I'm going to join it with my ruler again using this a slant line. So you have that, right? So we've marked our shoulder slope and our stitching allowance. So downward, I'm going to mark my armhole length. I'm going to make use of 9 in this case, right? And I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement again on that 9 inches, so that I'll be able to join the 2 points together. So under my bust line, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'm going to mark it, and I'll join the 2 points together, right, with a straight line, and I'm going to extend that line. So that line I'm going to extend is also going to serve as my bust line in this case. So yeah, I extended the line outward, and then I just joined the 2 points together, right? So after doing this, I'll go ahead and fully extend the line. So like I said earlier, this line is going to serve as my bust line, right? Good. So now from my shoulder line, that's that my border line, right, I'm going to mark my waistline. Sorry, my under bust line, which is 13. Depends on yours, maybe 13.5 or 13. So after marking 13 for my under bust, I'm going to mark my half length, which is going to be 16. You can use 15, depends on what your half length is, but I'm using 16 in this case. So I'm going to also extend those 2 lines also. So we have our bust line, our under bust line, and our waist line, right? And where my back's effect is going to stop. That is if you want to follow the style I want to make. But in case you're making maybe a half length, a half cut gown that has a gown, sorry, that has half cut, you just stop at your half length measurement and you'll be adding 1 inch. So maybe if it's 15, that means you're going to mark 17 inches at the end, but you can mark your 15 and then add 1 later on. So now on that my bust line, I'm going to impute my bust divided by 4. I got 9.5. My bust measurement is 38, so I'm going to mark that on my bust line. So you divide your bust divide by 4. Not that you're using 9.5, make sure you have your bust measurement, then you divide it. Then I'll go back to the armhole length. I'll find the midpoint inward. I'm going to mark 0.5, and I'm going to create my armhole curve, right? So after doing this, the next thing now is to find your bust palm or your nipple to nipple measurement. Mine is actually 7.5. I'm going to divide it by 2. It gave me 3.5. Then I'm going to add 1 inch to it. That's 4. And I'm going to mark that 4 on my bust line. Then I'll go down to my under bust, and I'm going to retain that my 3.5. I'm not going to be adding 0.5 inch. I'm going to mark 3.5. And on my half length also, I'm marking 3.5. So 4 inches on my bust line, my under bust, and then my half length I mark 3.5, right? So I'll join the 3.5 together with a straight line, and I'll use a slant line to join the under bust to meet the bust measurements, the one we imputed as nipple to nipple measurements. And I took that 3.5 downward to the end of my fabric, right? Your nipple to nipple measurement might not be 4, might not be 3.5. You need to measure so that you can know. Then now on my under bust, right, I'm going to mark 2 inches. That's on my other bust and my half length. From under bust downward, I'm going to mark 2 inches. The 2 inches is not constant. If your bust is a small one, maybe like 32 to 35, you can use 1.5. Then if your bust is from 43 above, you can use 2.5 inches. But me, my bust is 38. So basically, if you're from like 36 to 42, you can use the 2 inches. So I marked the 2 inches at the 3 points, right, and I joined it with a straight line like this. Good. So after marking down my 2 inches and joining them with a straight line, at my bust line that my 4 inches, I'm going to go down by 1 inch. I'm going to go down by 1 inch. And from that 1 inch, I'm going to form a curve. So that 1 inch and my 2 inches will meet. I'm going to form a curve. So I have to just turn it to be able to form the curve freely. I'll be using my free hand. But in case you have a French curve, you can make do with it. But I don't have one for now. So I just form my curve. So you see that our breasts is actually coming out, the bustier is coming up. So after doing this, I'm going to go over to my armhole and I'm going to measure what I have. After measuring, I got 10 inches and I'm going to divide that 10 inches by 2 and I'm going to be left with 5, right? So I'm going to go over again to my armhole curve and I'm going to measure that 5. So I'm going to measure the 5 and I'm going to mark it. So you measure what you have on your armhole, divide it by 2, and then you mark whatever you got. So now, upward of my bust line, I'm going to go over again by 1 inch. So now we have like 2 inch, one up, one down, right? So now the middle point of that my armhole curve that I marked, I'm going to make sure it meets my bust line, the measurement of my bust line, right? So I'm going to use a curve to do that too, and I'm going to use my freehand to do that. Freehand will be better in this case. So I formed it, right, and I'm going to make sure I marked that my 1 inch that we marked up. You make sure you mark it again because that's where you are going to be stopping for the next measurement you're going to take. So now, upward and downward of that my middle point of my armhole curve, I'm going to mark 0.5 inch upward and downward like this, right? And I'm going to make sure each of the 0.5 each meets that my 1 inch that I mark upward of my bust line in this direction. I don't know if you guys are understanding, but please try to watch you understand. So I drew both, right? I've done that here. So after doing that, when you put 0.5 plus 0.5, right, it's going to give you 1.5, right? So now the down one, the 0.5 that is at the down part, right? That's where I'm going to add that my 1.5 inch that we marked. 0.5 up, 0.5 down is going to give you 1.5 inches in total. So the down one, that's where you're going to add that 1.5 again. So you mark it outward like this and then you join it. So that 1.5 inches now will now serve as our new armhole curve. So after marking that 1.5 inch, right, I'm going to go back to my bust line, right, and I'm going to add 1.5 to my measurements. I've already marked my bust divide by 4. That was how I was able to get the initial curve. So now I'm going to add 1.5 to it again, and then I'll form my new armhole. So that's going to be your new armhole, right? So that's what I'm going to do here. Sorry, I'm flipping it so that I'll be able to create the curve. So that's why. So after doing this, right, I did the necessary thing, imputed all my measurements, but I thought my phone was actually capturing, but I was wrong. So I'll just try and explain. I didn't know my space was filled up. So what you would do after that is that on your bust line, you make sure you measure your bust divide by 4. We've done that earlier, right? And then we added 1.5 inch, right? 1.5 inches. So added that. Then I'm going to add 2 more inches allowance, right? Good. So now on the bust line, I'm going to go ahead and impute my divide by 4. My under bust is 33. Anything I got, I imputed it, and then I added 2 inches for that dart that we are going to remove, and I added 2 more inches for allowance. So on the half length, I did same thing at the end, but in case you want to measure your half length, and you can divide it by 4, and then you add your dart allowance, that's 2 inches, and you add your sewing and stitching allowance, right? So at the end, I took same thing. What I have on my underbust, I took it to my half length, right? And then I marked the length I wanted for my back's effect where I want it to stop. And I just use a slant line to meet the this other side that is closed, and then my half length point. So that's what I did. So where I start is the that you're going to cut out. So basically that's what I did, and then we'll just go ahead and cut out our front piece. So you see where I started from. That's because I have not yet drawn my neckline, right? So when you're cutting your shoulder slope, you're only cutting off the shoulder slope, excluding that stitching allowance that we added. So that's what you're going to cut. And then you watch the way I cut the armhole area. So basically, what you need is that 0.75 that is downward of the middle point of your armhole curve. So those the middle point of your armhole curve, the 0.5 inches at the upper part, you don't need them at all. We just did that one so we can get a perfect curve, right? So you can just find your middle point and then mark 0.5 downward and extend the line again 1.5, you understand. So I just cut carefully. Please watch how I cut so that you're not going to cut where you're not supposed to cut. So you carefully watch. That's why I did not speed up this part, so you can see it very carefully. And like I said, this video will be for the front piece cutting the neckline. Then I'm going to post the second part where we are going to cut the back piece. That one is very easy to cut. You can actually use a basic dart for that. So I'm going to post the back drafting and cutting laterwards, and then the under part, then maybe there'll be part 3 for stitching, or there might not be, because I don't want the video to be too long, so that's why I'm cutting it in parts. So I'll just go ahead and cut out my piece like this, right? So you carefully watch. That's why I'm not fast forwarding this video, because I know you guys know that I'm used to fast forwarding, and it's actually because of space and then posting, so that's why. So I'll just cut that off, and then this part, like I told you guys, where I start, you're cutting those parts off, and the middle point of your armhole curve and the upper 0.5 inches, you're cutting that off also. So I've cut the sides. Then now you see that 0.5 inches that we took up, I'm going to cut it off. So you are just cutting that off like this, and then you extend your cut towards that 2 inches that we marked for our darts. So you are going to cut that one too off. And when you're done cutting everything off, you have your princess bustier for your front piece, right? So the back piece, you can actually do just a simple dart and you're good to go. So this is what it looks like. Then now let's go to the neckline. I wanted a scallop neckline, but it wasn't like deep. I don't know, maybe because the length I used was not too deep. That's why. So for the length, I marked 6 inches because I don't normally like my neckline to be deep. So that was why I used 6, but you can use about 8. I think it will be finer there when you use 8. And for the width, maybe you should use about 5 to 6. It's going to come out better than mine. So I drew the points, I made my lines, right? And then I have 6 inches. So I'm going to divide it. Initially, I divided it into 3. So 6 divided into 3 will give you 2 inches. So I marked 2 inches initially, and I drew a straight line to mark those 2 inches. But then what? Then after I decided to reduce it, so I used 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So that gave me 4 lines, right? 1.5. So I extended those lines like this. And then after marking those lines and drawing that's extending the lines, right? So we have 4 rows, right? So now from the closed part, I'm going to mark 3 inches outward like this. That's for the first line. Then on the second line, I'm going to mark 2.5. I marked 2 inches, sorry. Then on the third line, I went ahead to mark 1 inch, right? And that was what I marked. So it depends on how many lines you have, what measurement you want to use, how wide, how deep your neckline is. So I just joined those points together from the upper one. I was forming a curve. Then I lost the clip. So this was what I did at the end. I just formed the curve, and this is what I had. So if my neckline was more wider than this, the scallop neckline would have been deeper than this and it would have looked nicer, But I just made you with this one like this. But when you're doing yours, please use a wider neckline and maybe a deeper one. So I placed it on my lining and I traced it out, right? So after tracing it out on my lining, I'm going to just retrace the scallop neckline also on my lining. So if you're using this scallop neckline, you need to make it deeper, please, because when I was done stitching and turning, I didn't really get the shape I wanted. It wasn't too evident enough. But you can stick to V neckline or round neckline, any choice of neckline you want. So basically in this video we've cut the front piece, that's our princess bustier and our scallop neckline. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, drop your comment, and I'm going to see you guys in part 2. Bye bye guys.